Good morning, everyone. June the 23rd. Snap, crackle, and pop. We're just about 1 week out of going into July. And I'm kind of thankful for that because July is usually our hottest month, July and August. But they're going to have to get on up and prove it to me. June has been smoking hot. So let's get up this morning. Let's shake, rattle, and hum. It's time for a morning word. June the 23rd, 2022. Get into that kitchen and rattle those pots and pans. Let's see if we can get something drummed up here this morning. See if I can get my face and y'all's faces looking together. Here we go. Let's see what this has got. Here we go. Let's look over here and see what this is. Hey, Desiree and Talisa, Mike Pate, and Mary Meadows, good morning to you. Jim Pennington. Hey, Jim, you did a great job last night. And it's a great story, and God did provide. Hey, Ramona and Brandy, here we go. Tell them, hey, Debbie, what you requesting prayers for? You can either say it here or put it in a private message for me. Good morning, Michelle, Diane, Josh Johnson, good morning to you. Good morning, Minaj, Dana Guy, good morning. Good morning. Hey, Linda Brown, good morning to you. Missy Ramsey, it was good to see you last night at church. How about that? Tell Randy I said, hey. Hey, Anita, Wyman Beck, good morning to you, buddy. Retha Avery. Larry Sullivan did an outstanding job last night preaching to us about get up. That's what God told Joshua after he laid down and broke down and had a whining session, a pouting session after they got their hat handed to them at Ai. Forgetting all that they had done, all the way up from Egypt through to Jericho. And the first thing that God said was, no, it's going to be all right. No. Joshua, I love you and you need to, get it pulled. No, he said, get up. We need to get up, guys. Hey, Nicole. Hey, Heather. Hey, Alan Davis. Good morning to you. Hope everyone is doing well. Kim Barnett, here we go. How y'all doing this morning? Big Al, my man. Where's the test? Yeah, I'm doing my rain dance too, Joe. Maybe we'll get some rain here. Got about a 50% chance Monday. Got about 4 more days to get there. Hey, Joe Perkins. Hey, Gary Skipper. It's dry as a powder house around here, baby. I'm talking about dry. It's dry. Y'all tell him thank y'all. Hey, Robin. Good to see you this morning. Thank you, Missy. Larry did a great job. Yes. Joanne Graver, good to see you. Marianne Stanley. All of our guys at church do a great job. Sean does a great job. Jason, Pastor Jeff does a great job. We got old Larry in the batting lineup now, in the batting order. Hey, Stacy, good morning to you. Hey, Terry, Teddy Bear, the big man Hallman, Brenda Dean, good morning. Yeah, a little sip for the trip, Wade. Your wife said it's time for you to get home, not so much because she misses you, but because the grass needs cut, all right? And she said she's retired. She ain't cutting no grass. Get home. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Kim Barnett. Good morning, everyone. All right, here we go. Let's get a little sip for the trip. Every knee will bow. Here we go. Ice water for me, coffee for y'all. All right, here we go. Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24. Shout out to all of our first responders, military personnel. Hey, Tyler, my sister said you're doing an excellent job. Good deal, buddy. I'm glad you are. Give a shout out to our first responders, praying for their safety, our military personnel, and those are going to become even more important. Possibly today, as the Supreme Court probably goes on record as passing down that they're at the federal level going to overturn the Roe v. Wade, probably send it back to the states. Every state's going to have to select for themselves whether or not they're going to continue to legalize abortion. If that is indeed handed down, it's already published on street corners and on social media that the liberal left, yes, that's the liberal left here in the United States of America, are going to take it to the streets and intimidate and burn and riot and throw and bust stuff, just like BLM and Antifa did back a couple of years ago. Now, see, you and I as conservative parents can go to the school board and tell them we are not going to put up with you teaching critical race theory and LGBTQ curriculum in our school, and the federal government will label us as domestic terrorists, and they'll go burn half the state down or half the nation down in the next week if they overturn Roe v. Wade, and they're going to call that a peaceful demonstration in the expression of their First Amendment rights. So that tells you where we are, upside down. Now, along those veins, I also gave a shout out to our military personnel. Well, of course, they are always engaged in dangerous activities, even if it's just training, but they are stationed all over the world doing some stuff that nobody knows about. That's going to come into play more and more as we are approaching a time when war is not possible. War is imminent. We have war on the European front right now between Europe, essentially, even though they're not in the EU and not in NATO, between Ukraine and Russia. I told you about Lithuania. I don't know if I did, but that's an issue. I'm not going to get into that this morning, but you can look at that. Just Google Lithuania and Russia, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, if Russia makes a move on Lithuania, and they will if Lithuania inhibits or prohibits, I should say, any more of their Russian supplies going across their country, you're going to see Russia make a move, because between Russia and Kaliningrad, which is a Russian warm water seaport where they have nuclear weapons, lies Lithuania. And if Lithuania tries to cut off any Russian supplies to their nuclear port, warm water port, they will go to war in a moment. The irony of that is that Lithuania is in NATO. So at that point, NATO, by its own charter, will have to come to the defense of Lithuania, which means all of Europe will go to war against Russia. Yeah, put that one under your hat and wait for that to happen. So the question that I get all the time, and which is the title of the morning word, is what's next? I always like to talk about this. What's next? What's the big thing happening on the front? Well, I want to just draw your attention to a couple of things this morning. Go to Matthew chapter 24, and I want to look at two things in particular, and that is the conditions for the return of Jesus. The conditions for the return of Jesus. All right. When we talk about what's next, and he says Jesus is on the verge of coming back. Oh yes, ma'am, he is. Oh yes, ma'am, he is. But I want to show you two conditions that Jesus said. I didn't say. Jesus said. Paul didn't say. Jesus said. Two conditions that are going to be on the earth prior to his return. Now let's look. I'm just going to read a couple of verses here. Let's just start with verse 9. It'll be a lengthy little text, and then we'll knock it out. Then they will deliver you, verse 9. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended and will betray one another and will hate one another. And many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, and because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations. And then the end will come. Pay attention to these verses here. Verse 15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place. I'm not going to go into Daniel, but you can go read that. Whoever reads, let him understand. All right, that's what he's saying. This is not going to make sense is what he said, is what he's saying, unless you've done your background in Daniel. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of the house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. Important verse here. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world, until this time, no, nor ever shall be. Nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, very important verse here, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, talking specifically about Israel here, those days will be shortened. Let me just pause right here. The word elect is used in several different ways in the Bible. The nation of Israel, Christians, Jesus himself. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. Okay? So is any Christian looking for Jesus? Yeah. They're looking for Jesus to come back. Any Jews looking for Jesus? Yep. We're looking for him the second time. They're looking for him the first time. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I've told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. In other words, nobody's going to have to tell you when Jesus gets here. Everybody going to know, right? For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Notice verse 28, very important. Wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. You know what a carcass is? It's a dead body. Verse 29, another important verse. Immediately, say this word with me. After the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now I'm going to skip the parable part. Now let's go to verse 36. But of that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, very important verses, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then two will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore you also be ready. Watch this now. For the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. If you were listening carefully, what you noticed there were two separate conditions described by Jesus concerning the coming of Christ. One is at the end of the tribulation, after the tribulation, in which, if you've read the book of the Revelation, you'll know that over half and nearly 3/4 of the earth will be dead. The scripture just said, unless God shortened those dates, no flesh would be saved. That means about 3/4 of the earth is dead. For sure a half, possibly 3/4 of the earth is dead. So at the end of the tribulation, the sun's not shining, the moon doesn't give its light, the heavens have been shaken, and all of a sudden everyone alive remaining on the earth sees Jesus coming in the clouds descending to the earth. Okay, that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is going to be like the days of Noah and the days of Lot, if you read over in Luke chapter 17. And it says it's going to be life as usual. You know, the eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and Lot went out of Sodom. In other words, it was life as normal. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think life as normal is going to be going on at the end of the tribulation? Let me answer for you. Absolutely not. First of all, there's not going to be any life much left here. It's certainly not going to be life as normal. Do you call the sun being darkened and the moon not giving its light normal? I don't. Do you call dead bodies everywhere normal? I don't. What do you call normal? What you getting ready to go do today? Now, if Jesus is coming back once to the earth at the very end, then how could he possibly surprise us with his coming? A, 3/4 of us won't be surprised because we'll be DEA to the D. Dead. Can't surprise dead folks. Secondly, the last chapter, the last page in a book is not a surprise. You know why? Because it's the last page. The credits at the end of the movie are not a surprise because they always come at the end. If Jesus Christ is coming back at the end, and he is, to the earth, that's not a surprise. So it looks like there's two different conditions here concerning the return of Christ. One that's going to be completely unexpected with life as normal, and then one at the very end of the tribulation in which just very few people are going to witness it with their eyes because there ain't going to be many people left here. So what explains those? Well, what explains is the rapture for the church, and then the church coming back with Jesus at the end of the tribulation. That's how I see it. That's how I interpret it. There ain't no other way you can get to it and have two separate conditions. Now, I'm not here to talk about the rapture, but I am telling you that if you're asking me what's next, brother, that could be next. Well, is there anything that possibly could happen? Okay, is there anything that possibly could happen before then that we might witness? Yes. There is going to be a war. And when I tell you there's going to be a war, I'm not talking about the war in Lithuania between Europe and Russia. I'm not talking about the war in Europe between Russia and Ukraine. I'm not even talking about China invading Taiwan or fighting the United States around Taiwan and around China. I'm not talking about that. The next war that's going to take place is going to be the most hellacious war you have ever seen on the northern front of Israel. It will definitely involve Iran and her proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas. It may or may not involve Russia and Turkey and other nations. It may or may not be the Gog-Magog war, which is described in the book of the Revelation. It may be a preemptive war. Gog-Magog may come at the end of the tribulation. Midway the tribulation. But my point is this. There is going to be a hellacious, and the reason I say that is it's going to be a slobber knocker, okay, war. It's going to set the stage for the Antichrist to rise up and broker a peace deal, okay? It's going to set the stage for a peace deal. So this war is happening right now. If you look and do your searching, you can see that for the last several months and also the last couple of years, Israel has been not so clandestinely going into Iran and bombing their centrifuges and bombing this and bombing that. And a couple of years ago, they assassinated some scientists. Well, they've assassinated a double handful of Iranian Revolutionary Guards higher-ups that are involved in attacking Israel and supplying Hamas and Hezbollah in Syria. Now, Syria is the playground. Syria is the playground. In Syria, just a history lesson, Syria underwent a civil war. Bashar al-Assad is the leader of Syria. He is running, and he's been running roughshod over his people. Well, there's a group of them that rebelled, creating a civil war. The United States has kind of, not so officially, but has backed the rebels. We want to be in Syria because we're trying to kill ISIS that has migrated into Syria and also in northern Iraq. So we want to be there, but we don't want to be there on bad terms with anybody. So in Syria, you have United States troops. You have Iranian troops, specifically Hezbollah and Hamas. Those are Arab terrorist groups that are backed by Iran. You have Syria itself, and you have Russia. And so Israel is sitting there looking at all of these people on their doorstep. And they are engaged in making sure that Iran does not bomb them with a nuclear bomb. Now, Iran officially announced that they are spinning up their uranium to 90% purity. You only do that for a nuclear bomb. There is no type of nuclear power or nuclear usage for uranium being purified at that level unless it's for a nuclear bomb. So they've already said, we're spinning it up and we're going to have a bomb. They've already gone on record saying if they have a bomb, they're going to bomb Israel off the face of the earth. That's their words, not mine. Off the face of the earth. So Israel's not going to let that happen. So Israel's been bombing their supply chains, bombing their weapons caches, assassinating, look it up, assassinating left and right higher-ups in Iran. Well, let me tell you something. That shoe is getting ready to drop, and they have hundreds of thousands of bombs. I sent out a text yesterday off Telegram. Now, you can get all this information I'm telling you on Telegram if you follow Amir Tsarfati. And to give you a heads up on that, Amir said he is the one. There's a couple of playmakers and a couple of people that are deceivers on there that go by his name. He's the only one that has 275,000 followers. Amir Tsarfati, 275,000 followers on Telegram. You can get all this information. So the Secretary of Defense or the Minister of Defense in Israel has said that when this war breaks out, and it is imminent. When I say imminent, I'm not talking about if it may happen. It's going to happen. He said, we are going to absorb a tremendous blow. They're going to lob more missiles at one time into Israel to try to overcome their Iron Dome defense that we provided for them. And the Iron Dome is good up to a limit, but it can be overwhelmed, okay? Meaning there can be so many missiles coming in at one time that they can't stop them. So what I'm telling you is that we may leave here in a minute, okay? We may leave here I'm talking about in a hot minute, as some of you girls say. In a hot minute, we may be gone away from here. There is nothing that has to happen prior to the rapture. Then again, we may, before this afternoon, be witnessing the powder keg explosion of a Middle Eastern war that will eventually draw all these other players into it. It may or may not involve them at the beginning, but it's going to involve Iran. And let me tell you something that's going to be fulfilled in this war. You ready? The Bible says in the Old Testament that Damascus will cease to be a city. Okay, so that means that Israel, just Randy's opinion here, Israel is going to nuke a tactical nuke in Damascus, Syria. Now, you're going to get to see that on TV. It's going to be impressive, but it's also going to be tremendously sad because there's going to be buku-doodles of people killed, both Arabs, Iranians, Syrians, and Jews. That's what's next. We're either going to get out of here, or there's going to be a war right there in Jerusalem, and I'm talking about in swift fashion. That's coming. Now, here's another thing that's happening on the home front besides the Supreme Court deal, which you can get ready for that. And there's going to be all types of hell break out here in domestic terrorism if they overturn Roe v. Wade. That's going to happen. And so the next thing that I want to just kind of give you a heads up on, and then we're going to be out of here, is this. There is already, not coming, there is already a shortage of diesel fuel. Do you know how you get all your stuff? Yeah. Diesel. Trains, diesel, trucks. All right? Diesel ships. There's a shortage of diesel. There's a video, I just saw it this morning, that someone sent to me on TikTok. I don't do TikTok, but they send me the videos, where some of our domestic oil producers are telling that Maxine Waters, that bozo the clown that somebody hired to be a legislator, told her that if they do not reverse their policies and let the American domestic oil people and gas people go back to drilling, that $5 a gallon in gas is going to be the low point, and it's going to go up. And she said, well, and I won't tell you what all she said, but here's what she said. Well, if we let y'all go back, we're going to be looking at trying to take over domestically, the federal government taking over the oil and gas production so that they can nationalize it like Putin does in Russia and basically make them the oil and gas czars. Now that's what that crazy heifer wants to do. So that's what we're looking at in this country right now. So what I'm telling you is this: about August or September, unless something happens, you and I are going to witness shortages And I'm talking about like real shortages. Okay? And it's going to get live. People that own trucks right now are spending an additional $20,000 a week on fuel. Those trucks get about 6 miles to the gallon, and their diesel is $6 a gallon. It's costing them $1 every mile they travel. Now somebody's got to pay for that in higher prices, or they're just going to quit running because they can't stay in business. They're going to go bankrupt. So that's what's next. You're going to see shortages on the shelves. You're going to see domestic terrorism in the streets of America if the Supreme Court holds to their preliminary ruling that they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade at the federal level. And you're going to see war in Israel, possibly war between Russia and Europe because of the Lithuanian deal. But you're going to see war in Israel. You need to be keeping up with that. Go to Telegram. I can't tell you enough. Go to Telegram and look at that. Watch that. Also, there's another app that was launched by Donald Trump Jr. called Mainstream Media. It's free. You can download the app. Mainstream Media. They pretty much tell you everything that's going on. Newsmax is a pretty good news source. The rest of them you can throw out in the yard. But Telegram, as far as the Middle East, if you go to Telegram and follow Amir Sarfati, and he's the one with 275,000 plus followers, you can keep up accurately with what's going on. He also tells you about various end times events happening around the globe. The earthquake in Afghanistan that's killed thousands of people right now. I felt like there was one coming the other day. I told some friends of mine there's one coming. It was pretty bad. I don't think this one's it, but I think there's one coming here real soon. It's going to be tremendously bad. And so that's what's next on horizon. So you need to lighten up, pack up, and look up. And I'm not telling you this to be scary, because it says that the rapture of the church is going to take place during life as normal. But you need to have your head on a swivel. You need to kind of be looking around and be aware. Jesus said, when you see these things begin to happen, look up, meaning get ready. Get your house in order. So, guys, that's what it is. That's not so much of a hoorah and let's go hit them, charging gates of hell with a water pistol kind of message. That's just kind of giving you some FYI information about what we are looking at, what's next on the domestic front, the international front, and the Middle Eastern front. That's what's next. We'll see you tomorrow, good Lord willing. And they don't burn America down, and they don't blow Israel up, and the saints don't rise.